Hello, welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Taylor and today we'll be doing Destiny Sidwell's end of the year book tag. But before we hop in the video, remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you love all things books. Alright, so to kick off the end of the year book tag, I'm going to go over some brief StoryGraph stats. So if you don't know what that is, StoryGraph is the book social media app that I use to track my reading. So for the year of 2023, my most read book moods were lighthearted, emotional, and funny. We know me, I don't particularly love anything dark and dramatic and sad. I mostly read medium-paced books, and I also read primarily books between 300 to 499 pages, so kind of in the mid-range of book reading. And then out of all the books I read this year, 92% of them were fiction and 8% were nonfiction. My most read genres were number 1, romance, followed by contemporary, followed by LGBTQIA+, so queer reads, then young adult, and then fantasy. Those are my top 5 read genres of the year. My most read authors were Lauren Asher, Emily McIntyre, and Grace Riley. I mean, I read most of their series this year, so yeah. And then in total, my average rating for the year was 4.3 stars. You'll probably not be surprised after you listen to me go through all these questions. I'm a fairly generous rater. So if you do anything to make less than like 3 stars from me, you know the book was not it. And without further ado, shout out to Destiny Sidwell for creating this tab. I will leave her links down below to her video, and let's start with question number 1. Disclaimer, I only try to pick one answer per question, and I tried not to repeat anything. I don't think anything is repeated per question, so if you're wondering where certain character / book titles are for certain questions, that's the reason why. Question number 1 is most disappointing read of the year. Now, going through my books, I think there's a lot of disappointing reads this year, but I chose Reputation by Lex Croucher. I ended up giving this book 3.75 stars. This is a historical romance, or at least it's marketed as a historical romance, that is described as Bridgerton meets Mean Girls, and it follows a girl who is brought from the very, I guess, prudish English countryside and thrust into high society England and all sorts of debauchery. There's some cute little romance. There's even a sapphic romance if you're looking for that. But most of the book focuses on the friendships and sort of the shenanigans that they get up to. Trigger warning for sexual assault if you plan on reading this book. The main reason that this was most disappointing to me is I went into this really all high and excited. Chandler Ainsley recommended this book, so I usually trust her recommendations. The pacing is what got it for me. This book just felt way too long for what it was. And for a book that was long, there was not a whole lot of romance to keep me hooked. I still recommend this if you're looking for sort of that, you know, more Mean Girls historical side of things, but it's not necessarily the kind of historical drama, comedy / whatever that I'm going to be picking up. Next up, we have the Underdog Book of the Year. So I tried to stick to picking a book that came out this year that didn't get the amount of love that I think it should. So I chose Teacher of the Year by M.A. Wardell. This is a cute little queer romance that follows okay, I'm not going to remember all their names, but it follows a kindergarten teacher who falls in love with the father of one of his new students. It's real cute. It's real spicy. If you like spice, M.A. Wardell is the author for you, and I think they just released their debut. This might be their debut novel. They've only released 2 novels so far, and I've enjoyed both of them. Have reviews for them up here. And I'm just going to say, I always like to hype up queer authors, and I don't think this indie author has gotten the love that he deserves. So if you like spicy, you like a little academic romance, you love a little self-discovery and exploration of your sexuality, this one's for you. Number 3, we have a book that was overhyped. Now when I say overhyped, it is essentially a book that got a lot of press, got a lot of airtime on social media that I didn't necessarily love. And I know that the girlies are going to come after me for this one, but if you watched my review, you would understand that this one is coming up. That is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This is a historical romance fantasy, and it follows these 2 writers at a newspaper who, unbeknownst to them, well, unbeknownst to one of them, are communicating via magical letters on a typewriter. And there's also this magical war that's going on between gods that's doing this. And then they both go off to war, you know, fall in love. I don't know if I just spoiled that for you. It's definitely a lower stakes fantasy, in my opinion, or at least I feel like what the author had to do to create this both sacrificed some of the romance and the fantastical elements. And I thought that the book was just okay. I don't know if my thoughts will change when I read the second half of the series, the Into the Duology. Maybe that'll get me, because it did leave off on a slight bit of a cliffhanger that I saw coming from a mile away. So, but like I said, books are hyped for a reason. If you love it, you love it. Question 4, Fav Book Couple of the Year. Now, I had a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. But, like, the first person that came to mind, like the first group that came to mind, was Lila Reyes and Orion Maxwell from A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow. This is a YA romance that just is absolutely fun. It's not really lighthearted because there are discussions of grief and loss in here, but it just had me kicking, giggling, and screaming, had me feeling all the sunshiny vibes, because I read this at the beginning of summer. I think it was, maybe it was in May, so like going into summer, and it just had me feeling. And basically Orion Maxwell, hot British boyfriend who just knows what to say and what to do. And after I finished this book, I kept thinking, I'm gonna need a second book of just their relationship post getting together. I need that. So that's how you know this was a great couple, because I need more. I need more of them so much. Then we have my Fav Main Character, or MC, from the year. Now, I haven't finished this series. I've only made it through the 3 out of 5 novellas, but it has to be Lana Myers from the Mindfuck series. I love a powerful woman. Moreover, I love a powerful villainous woman. Well, villainous and morally gray woman. Essentially, Lana Myers is a serial killer who is going after all the men who wrongs her in her life. And while she's doing this, she just happens to start dating the FBI profiler who's on her case. And the reason I've honestly put off finishing the last 2 books is because I don't want the series to end, and that's how you know it's a good character and it's a good series. 5-star series. Book that surprised me the most. Now, this could go 2 ways. It could be good surprise, it could be bad surprise. I went with good surprise because I love hyping up my favorite books and my favorite authors. The book that surprised me most was Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. The reason it surprised me this most is because this was the first real YA fantasy. Well, no. I read another YA fantasy to kick off the year, but this was the first YA fantasy, my first delve back into YA fantasy in my 20s that was like 5 stars, absolutely amazing. Honestly, reason is most surprising is because I wouldn't change a thing. I consider this to be an immaculate book. I'm sure there are criticisms out there, but I will accept none because it is absolutely fantastic. There's a lot of plot to describe. Really, all you need to know going in is that it is a King Arthur retelling following Bree. I think it is Bree. Bree Matthews, who goes off to do a summer college program and gets swept up into this Arthurian society. And it, you know, deals with racism, microaggressions, I'm trying to think of what else, grief. It deals with a lot of things. So go in prepared with those trigger warnings. Also, love triangle. Love triangle. Can't wait to read the next book, but I'm waiting for it to come out in paperback. My new favorite author that I discovered in 2023. There's a lot of authors that I loved and discovered in 2023, so I had to think of the author that kept me captivated the most, because really a lot of the authors that I discovered I've only read 1 book from, so I don't know. But like I said, I opened up the video saying that Lauren Asher was my most read author of the year, so I chose her as my new favorite author of the year. Now, I can't say, okay, I've only given 1 book 5 stars from Lauren Asher. I'm currently in the middle of trying to finish her entire backlog. I've read the Dirty Air series. I'm finishing up the Dreamland Billionaire series right now, and then I'm hoping to end the year out by completing her new series, which starts with Love Redesigned. The reason she is my new favorite author is because her books are so absolutely bingeable and kicking, giggling, and screaming, just that vibes, that they keep me hooked. Are there some things that are said and done in her books and I'm like, I'm going to ignore that? Sure, but on the whole, I love it. I will say, being someone who worked as a Disney, like a Walt Disney World cast member, reading the first book in the Dreamland Billionaire series was kind of interesting, but we'll ignore that. So, Hopefully by the end of the year, I will have finished all of her backlog and I can jump into a new author. Then we have Happiest Book You Read This Year. So I've been saying kicking, giggling, and screaming. So the books that give you those vibes. There's a lot, and I mean a lot, because I am a rom-com girly. But when I think of vibes, the vibes that just have you squealing. My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. This one was just so absolutely cute. Has me wanting another book. It just was. It encapsulated what it meant to be spoopy, to be cutesy. It essentially follows Cassie, who takes a lease or like moves into this apartment, this real cheap apartment with this man that she doesn't really see a lot. He only comes out at night. And then lo and behold, she discovers he's a vampire who kind of needs to update his personality and his lifestyle. And it just kind of follows that. It's a cute romance. There's a brief moment of spice, and it just is a bunch of sweet moments. I don't think it got the hype or the love that it deserved. So if you're looking for just like, you know, quick read, something fun, this one's for you. Then we have the most frustrating book I read this year. I think I did review this book. So it would probably come as no surprise to anyone who's seen that review. But it's I Kissed a Girl by Jeanette Alexander. And what a poor way to kick off my Pride Month reading, because this book was the only book that made less than 3 stars this year. I think I gave it 2.5 stars. Was that a little generous? Maybe. But still, the reason it was the most frustrating book this year is because, in theory, simple plot. We have a, special effects makeup artist who's falling in love with the, like, Scream Queen starlet, discovering one's sexuality. There were so many subplots and unnecessarily, weird things that went on in this that made it so convoluted. And then just, the comments are about femmes, I didn't need that. The ending? What was that? What was that? It is closed door, if you're looking for that. If you want to have a very frustrating time and just laughable little plot, this is for you. Was that an unnecessary roast of a book? Maybe. Does that recommend? This one was immediately unhauled after I read it, even though this one should have been a DNF'd, but I didn't. Next, we have the best TV or film adaptation of the year. Now, on the whole, in terms of sticking to the original source material, Daisy Jones and the Six. Am I currently supporting Taylor Jenkins Reid? No. If you don't know why, do a little bit of research. So in that case, Red, White, and Royal Blue. Because, duh. Was it completely and utterly cheesy and avoided putting in a lot of plot points and characters that I would have loved? Sure. Could it have been a TV series? Yes. Was it still a grand old time? Absolutely. Have I watched Percy Jackson, the new series? No. Because I deleted Disney+. Oh well. If you've seen the Percy Jackson series, let me know down below. Is it great? Is it amazing? We'll see. Question 11. Longest book I read this year. I went on StoryGraph and looked it up. Now, the StoryGraph numbers are usually a little overinflated, but according to StoryGraph, it is Wrecked by Lauren Asher. This is the 3rd book in the Dirty Air series, and it follows Jax and Elena. This is the one that I cried in. 4.75 stars. Not my favorite in the series. Longest, but definitely interesting. And then up next is the shortest book I read this year. And now a lot of people aren't including novellas on this. I think BS, because I'm a novella girly. I love to read short books. And I read this one very recently. It's A Very Krampus Holiday by Katie Robert. It is a monster erotica, so if you know, you know. And it was only 15 pages long. So if you're looking for a quick, smutty read, this one's for you this holiday season. Number 13, my fave book cover of the year. Now, I'm thinking of the covers that were just aesthetic goals. Now, while I didn't necessarily think this book was the most amazing thing to ever hit the market, mainly just because I tend to avoid cowboy romances, because as someone who grew up in the South, cowboys, not necessarily my favorite thing, but this book was cute. But the cover is cuter, and that is Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. And the entire, series lineup covers, just absolutely amazing. Whoever designed these, props to you, because I just love the vibes. Then we have a book that I haven't stopped thinking about. Now again, could go one of two ways. I could have not stopped thinking about it because it was absolutely amazing, or because it was absolutely terrible and convoluted. There are books that fall into both of those categories, but again, choosing good things, and that is The Right Move by Liz Tomfort. I will give a brief shout out to Caught Up by Liz Tomfort because I think that book got a little bit overshadowed by The Right Move this year. but The Right Move. It is the second book in the Windy City series by Liz Tomford. It is a basketball romance, and it follows Indy, who moves into her best friend's brother's apartment, Ryan Shea, after she discovers her long-term boyfriend has been cheating on her. So we've got forced proximity roommates, we've got a grumpy sunshine, and you've got a little bit of he falls first. And this is spicy, this is heartwarming. It is a long one, but you know me, how I say I don't really love long books. This is the one that kept me hooked. Trigger warning for infertility. So then we have Cringiest Book you read this year. Not only do I believe in cringy, I believe in like personal taste. So I picked the books that I thought was probably considered the most cringeworthy book I read this year. And wouldn't you know, Holiday Romance, Same Time Next Year by Tessa Bailey. This is a cute little novella that follows, what is her name? Can't remember. A girl who agrees, Britta. It follows Britta. Britta agrees to fake marry her brother's teammate Sumner so Sumner can get a green card. The catch is that in a year's time, they must be divorced. And it was cute. It was a fluffy little holiday novella. So if you're looking for that, this one's for you. Don't know if I'm that intrigued to read much of Tessa Bailey anymore, but if you think there's a good recommendation for me, leave those down below. Then we have an unpopular book I loved. So I take this question as a book that not a lot of people liked, that you really enjoyed. So I'm sure there were others, but the book that I chose was Collided by Lauren Asher. Not because a lot of, I would say this is probably one of the least liked books in the series, and I feel like it gets a lot of like flack, but I thought it was cute. I liked it a little more than Throttled, the opening book. This one follows, what is her name? What is his name? At this point, I can't remember. But this one is a cute little like strangers to friends to lovers romance. It's got a spicy bucket list, which was something that I discovered that I absolutely loved this year. So I do recommend reading this series in order. I think, to be honest, you kind of really need to read the series in order to like really appreciate the last book. But I digress. They're interconnected standalones, so theoretically you don't have to. But this one gets more hate than I think it deserves. The next question I can't really answer, and that is, what was the highest and lowest rated books you read this year on Goodreads, and do you agree? I don't use Goodreads, and StoryGraph doesn't have that feature, so I decided to substitute this with what were my DNFs this year, because I don't think I've got a video where I will be talking about that. So let me pull those up. Now, there are plenty of reasons I DNF a book. Are all of them good reasons? No. Let's see, first book I DNF'd this year was Faking with Benefits by Lily Gold. I think I got over 70% of the way through this, and honestly, pacing. I got bored. It's a cute Why Choose romance. She does a lot of Why Choose romances. Did not keep me hooked. And then, how do we say this? Another Why Choose romance, The Company of Fiends, the second Tempting Monsters book by Catherine Moon. I read the first one. I really enjoyed the first one. I just think it accomplished what it needed to in the first book. And I just didn't feel like finishing the next one. It took me forever to finish the first book anyways. Then we have For the Fans by Nyla Kay. I was so excited to read this. We love a queer romance. We love a cute little dark romance. Then I got a couple chapters in, realized they were stepbrothers, and said, peace out. Not for me. Then I have The Honeymoon Mix-Up, the first Sapphire Isle book by Frankie Fire. This is a cute little sapphic novella. Honestly, I think it was timing when I read this, but it just did not pique my interest. I think I got like 30% of the way through. Then we have Night Shift by Annie Crown. This is a fairly recent one. It's got a very cute cover. That's what drew me in. The problems were this book was told in one single POV. I don't know if it was in first person or third person, but it was one POV. And I was reading this book thinking, I need this man's point of view, because, like, what the fuck is he thinking? Like, what is going on in this man's head? And then it was, like, very much so, like, virgin heroine, but, like, anxious virgin heroine. And I'm like, this is a little something. And then, now I'm a white liberal woman, but this was giving off, like, cringy white liberal woman, and that was a little too much. Then my most recent DNF was Christmas Cupid by Ilsa Madden Mills. This is another novella. Could I have gone forth and read this? But within the first couple chapters, this man said he was a sissy, or called himself a sissy, for just dealing with everyday human pain. And one, I don't like the word sissy. I hate the use of it. Two, I just can't. I just can't. Like, grow up. Learn how to use words properly and treat yourself properly, dude. But yeah, I'm sure it would have been interesting. Just not going to continue on with it. Then we have my fave quotes from the year. Do I remember any lines from any single book? No. I can remember Taylor Swift lyrics, and that's about it. So I decided to choose a book that I think probably had the most quotable or the most philosophical, lyrical, beautiful writing, and that is The Wild Ones by Nafisa Azad. This probably also could have taken the cake for most unique concept. This is the case of a book of like, I absolutely enjoyed this one, but I already unhauled it because I just couldn't see myself ever like reading again. What it follows a group of girls who have been given this second chance at life after going through these very tough times, and they go throughout the world living and trying to provide for other girls in need. There's a little subplot, there's a little romance, it's a YA fantasy. You just kind of have to read it to understand it, but it has a bunch of like quotes and like philosophical things leaning like throughout about girlhood and about violence against women and, you know, unrealistic standards for women. So definitely say go read it. Let me know your thoughts on that one. That one is a unique book that I definitely think a lot of people will either enjoy or just kind of find, eh. Then we have book with the most unique concept. Like I said, The Wild Ones could have taken this one, but I chose Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver because honestly, when I heard the trigger warnings and the premise for the book, I was like, what on earth was this author thinking? First of all, this is not just a dark romance. This is a dark romantic comedy. So there's that. Then you have two serial killers who kill other serial killers and bad guys in a competition where one of them is madly in love with the other. It's a he falls first. But one of the trigger warnings is accidental cannibalism. Now I will say going to this, I'm like, I don't know what this means. I'm just curious. So I will say she was funny. She was not as spicy as I was expecting. But in terms of uniqueness, she's up there. She's up there with the Mindfuck series. So if you like dark, if you like a little funny, a little spicy, this one's for you. She also had a great cover. She could have taken the cake for best cover of the year too. Then we have book you wish you could reread or that you would reread. Now when it comes to my rereads, it's either going to be really short books, nonfiction, or like childhood nostalgia. So thinking of a book that I went through this year that I'd probably reread again, I have a graphic novel, Other Ever Afters. These are New Queer Fairy Tales by Melanie Gilman. It is a graphic novel with a bunch of different fairy tales, so like 7 in here. This is one that I'm like, I kind of want to go read this in front of a bunch of like middle schoolers and children because even though it's marketed as a YA, I think it has a lot of like good messaging in here that would be something that we could give to children, middle schoolers, or just anyone at any age to like teach them some lessons as fairy tales and fables are designed to do. And it's got very beautiful imagery. So if you're looking for a quick graphic novel to like read for the end of the year or just in the next year, this one's a good one for you. Number 21, reading goal reflection plus 2024 reading goal. According to StoryGraph, I've read 88 books this year. Have I logged every book I've read this year, or has StoryGraph been able to log every book I've read this year? No. So probably just add like a couple more books to that. My reading goal was 50. I set it low. I set it at achievable level. Am I trying to reach 100 books by the end of the year? Sure. Don't know if we'll try that, but my goal was 50, so it was met. What am I going to set my goal for next year? I don't really know. I probably might just set it for 50 again. I like setting achievable goals. I basically go with the rule of thumb, like if my 10-year-old self couldn't do it, I'm not going to set it. And I know at 10 years old I could read. I think I read like somewhere in the 80 to 100 books range. I was a really fast reader as a kid, and I was at a school that required me to read a lot of books. Not that many, but it required me to read a lot, so that was probably the peak of my reading is elementary and middle school before now. So I'll probably just set it at 50 again because I do have a lot of things going on next year, including graduating from grad school, so that's going to take up some time. Then the last question is, after 2023, what are you prioritizing for your 2024 reading goals? There's a lot of things. I've got like 3 on the mind. First off, I want to expand and diversify my reads. I love reading queer reads. I am a queer person. However, amongst my queer reads, I have a lot of queer romances specifically that are by like white men. So I want to expand beyond that. Second off, I want to expand my genres. I love romance, for the win. But I want to read a few more fantasies, maybe dip into the thriller range. I don't know. Want to read a few more fantasies, maybe dip into some literary fiction. I don't know. Then my last one is to try and read more nonfiction. I read 8% nonfiction this year, which was good. I want to work in an academic setting. I want to work for a college, want to be a professor. And I'm always of the mindset of you need to constantly be learning and teaching. So hopefully I'll expand that. I've got one nonfiction on my physical TBR. Oh, one of the other goals is I'm going to try and prioritize saving money because hopefully I'll be moving out next year and sticking to the physical TBR that I have / not taking in as many books as I may want to, and, you know, utilizing my e-reader and my Spotify account to read. Let me know, what are you prioritizing in 2024? And if you have any recommendations for books that I should be reading and adding to my 1, queer reads list, because I love recommending those and reading those, but 2, to just diversify my reads. The last thing I'm going to say for this video is please comment down below your favorite reads of 2023, or maybe your least favorite reads of 2023. We like to get a little spicy. Just be respectful in the comments down below. And I will see y'all next video.